When you think about businesses that are selling through the roof, like Skims or Allbirds, sure, you think about a great product, a cool brand, and great marketing. But an often overlooked secret is actually the businesses behind the business, making selling and for shoppers buying simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. It's home of Shop Pay, the #1 checkout in the world. You can use it to boost conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts going abandoned and way more sales going through to checkout. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout Allbirds uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/income, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/income to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/income.
Hi everyone, I'm Deb Flashenberg. Welcome to Yoga, Birth, Babies, a podcast produced by Prenatal Yoga Center. We will be diving into everything prenatal yoga, birth, and baby related, hoping to inspire, educate, and empower you through your journey into motherhood. Thank you for listening.
Hi, I'm Deb Flashenberg, and I'm your host of Yoga, Birth, Babies. And today's topic is something all parents are going to have to figure out at some point in their child's life, and that is potty training. When I connected with Dr. Heather Wittenberg, she opened my eyes to something about potty training I actually had no idea about. It is not a one-size-fits-all situation. And in her book, she describes the 5 potty personalities, which was kind of mind-blowing to me. We go through that in this podcast. We also talk about how potty training is actually a milestone in childhood development. Again, something I hadn't even thought about. We cover what's kind of quote unquote within the norms of potty training, when parents should need help, understanding issues like constipation and poop withholding. Then we also talk about nighttime potty training, which is very different than daytime potty training. So we cover so much that as a parent, you're going to help your child learn to use the potty. And what I think you're really going to find fascinating is understanding your child's personality is going to help you know how to best potty train them. It was really kind of fascinating to me to go through this. Even though my kids have been potty trained for years and years and years, I still have very clear memories, especially with my son. We did this kind of crash course 3-day potty training situation. And I remember it very clearly. It was pretty intense 3 days. So we go way into that whole action of potty training. But let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Heather Wittenberg. She is a working mom of 4 and a practicing psychologist specializing in the development of babies, toddlers, and preschoolers. She is a nationally known parenting writer, speaker, and media guest expert and social media presence. She also provides expert testimony for the court in child welfare cases. And she is the force behind BabyShrink, an online resource for parents to help troubleshoot the challenges and celebrate the awesomeness of raising young children, and a content expert for family-friendly brands and organizations. She was really fun and really passionate about this topic. So knowing that maybe you're in the middle of potty training or it's something you're going to be approaching, this podcast is for you, because at some point, you're going to teach your child how to use the potty and say goodbye to the diapers. Now, before we get to that conversation, I always love to give updates about what's happening at PYC. Really, the best way to stay up to date on our schedule for our in-person classes, our online or on-demand classes, is to go to our website, prenatalyogacenter.com. You can sign up for our classes, our workshops, our teacher trainings, check out our past blogs, our past podcast episodes. Everything is there. And you can also sign up for the newsletter there. So head over prenatalyogacenter.com. I also want to give a big thank you, because I say this every episode, but it means something to me. It really is so important that I would love if you have a conversation or a topic, or you think you'd be a great guest on the podcast, to reach out. And I actually just had someone that I hadn't even met from our community. They don't take class with us, but said they listened to the podcast and the birth stories really helped them. And they reached out to share their birth story, and it's already scheduled. So it really means something to me that you want to come on and share either a topic or your own story. So thank you for those that have listened and have jumped into that. Now, I do have a favor of you. If you can leave a rating and review for Yoga Birth Babies, it's going to help people find the podcast, and it just adds to our community. So thank you in advance for that. Okay, I think that's enough from me. Let's take a quick break. We come back. Let's talk potty training.
K-pop Demon Hunters Haja Boys breakfast meal and Huntrix meal have just dropped at McDonald's. They're calling this a battle for the fans. What do you say to that, Rumi?
It's not a battle. So glad the Saja Boys could take breakfast and give our meal the rest of the day.
It is an honor to share.
No, it's our honor.
It is our larger honor.
No, really. Stop.
You can really feel the respect in this battle. Pick a meal to pick a side.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
At participating McDonald's while supplies last.
Hi, Heather. How are you?
I'm doing awesome, Deb. Thanks. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm actually really excited to talk about the topic of potty training because I have two kids and I very much remember potty training. And it's so interesting that when I was preparing for this conversation, you talked about the 5 different personalities. And it occurred to me like, oh, that's why it was so different for each kid. Because, yeah, like one of them totally got it and the other, I'm like, oh, this is going to be a challenge. So I think many parents are nervous about this topic and they're excited to learn more. So I guess before we jump into that, I'd love to learn a little bit more about you and what sparked your interest in baby and toddler development.
Yeah, so I'm a family psychologist and more importantly, I think a mom of 4. But when I started having babies, I was really blown away, by how difficult it is just on a daily basis for me, not super intuitive. And I had what I thought were simple questions like, if my baby seems to need to suck on a pacifier or their thumb, like, is that going to ruin their teeth? Or like, more importantly to me, their mind? Like, psychologically, is that going to cause damage? Or certainly for potty training too, does it matter if there are potty training delays or complications psychologically? There's so much conflicting information out there for all kinds of parenting issues like that. So I just decided to go to the research and talk to the experts and really got deep into it and wanted to share what I learned online. And that's how my parenting platform, BabyShrink, was born, so to speak. And I had 4 babies in 8 years and changed diapers for 11 years straight, very glamorously began to work on this area. And then began to work in our local 0 to 3 agency and was part of their early intervention team, what's called nationally their Part C team for 10 years. And I've just always been so fascinated about how much and how fast babies grow psychologically, cognitively, socially, and yet how little time most pediatricians have to get in deep with these questions with parents, and how a little bit of parenting information at this stage can improve the attachment, child development, parenting trajectory, all of it for the child's whole life. It's just really miraculous.
It's so interesting you were talking about kind of the development and even pediatricians, because I don't think when it came time for potty training, I had any information other than what I found online or what I talked about with my friends. It just wasn't something my pediatrician even brought up. Like, when are you starting potty training? How is it going? And with my son, we did this crazy crash course. 2 other families and I were the mom friends. We're like, okay, we're going to do it this weekend. And we did some crazy thing where
The boot camp.
Yeah, I think it was boot camp.
Yep.
I think we had my son without a diaper for a whole day and
pants-free weekend. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's
a thing.
You've heard of it. It is,
and
it actually worked really well. It did not work with my daughter, so I'm excited to talk more about that. But so you often say that potty training is easy for about half of toddlers, which clearly one of my 2 kids it was, but not difficult for the rest. So why that stark divide?
Yeah, I mean, parents, like you said, go online to find out how to potty train their child, and about half are just kind of naturally easy to train no matter what method you use. But then the other half not so much. And then so many parents end up just feeling like, what's wrong with my child that this 3-day method or whatever I tried didn't work? Or what's wrong with me as a parent? And there are surprisingly deep and painful feelings that parents often have that come along with this potty training stress, or these feelings of failure or competitiveness with other parents. And what I realized is that, of course, the potty training advice is one size fits all, but your child is unique and every child is so different. So digging deep into the infant temperament research. So, this is a whole widely accepted field of research that shows each child is born day one, even before day one in utero, with these sort of factory settings, this preloaded temperament type, with temperament being the sort of foundation of personality that is inborn and probably genetic in your child, which is why some babies are fussier than others. Some babies are more shy. Some are more active. So why would a single cookie cutter approach work with your unique child for potty training or for anything else? And I realized I needed to create a customized approach based on your child's personality, and that's where my potty personalities came from.
So we're actually going to jump a little ahead because I want to hear those personalities. I'll come back to talking about milestones in a minute, but let's jump into that because I love that you did break this down. And I also really appreciate that you talked about how parents might attach either competition or failure, because with our son taking it so easily, we're like, woohoo, we're great parents. Right. And then when it didn't work, we're like, what did we do wrong?
Totally.
So can you describe the 5 different potty personalities? I love the names. If I'm correct, they're the hippie, the mule, the tornado, the accountant, and the eager beaver. So let's talk about that.
Well, if you don't mind, first, let me just talk a little bit about cultural differences, because that's a really important issue here that I want to mention up top. And that is just that potty training varies quite a bit by cultural background, by, say, immigrant background, et cetera. And there are so different ideas about potty training that are strongly culturally and also economically based. And babies and toddlers are thankfully very flexible and resilient. And so we do see very different approaches around the world that work, and all of which are fine. But I know that, your listeners are thinking about this as well. And so I just want to mention my background is a Western style of potty training, and that's the foundation of my potty personalities. And I just want to shout out the families out there attempting different approaches to potty learning, which includes like what's called the elimination communication approach, which is a much earlier style of potty training, which is also found in various parts of the world, like in Africa and China, for instance. And I also want to say that these approaches are not necessarily better or worse. My message is that your approach needs to work for you as a parent and for your family. So if you have the resources to provide, say, like a baby wearing kind of support, sort of necessary for an super early potty training approach, if you have that, go for it. And if you don't, or if it just doesn't work for your family, say your child needs to be in a standard daycare setting, that's fine too. So really find what works best for you and customize for your child from there. And your child development outcomes for your kiddo will be fine either way. So with that said, getting into my 5 potty personalities as you introduce them. This is just really fun for me. So my potty personalities are all laid out in my book, which is called Let's Get This Potty Started, The BabyShrink's Guide to Potty Training Your Toddler. And it's all, again, based on widely accepted temperament research. And I bet you'll recognize some kiddos that you know. And so first, I will introduce the accountant potty personality. So accountants love to follow the rules. They're sort of little bean counters that are very careful and very meticulous, and they might be, sometimes possibly a little bossy or like sort of tell on you if you break the rules. Like they're very focused on the rules. They want to do things the, quote, right way, and so they're very motivated to follow instructions. And they're pretty straightforward to potty train if you build a solid plan with them that allows them for some control. Okay, but next we have the hippie potty personality. And hippie toddlers just don't seem to care particularly if they're just walking around with a giant load in their pants. Do they? Like, they just don't care. Regardless of what your potty training plan is, they're just happy doing other stuff, and pressure will not work for them. And so they're just like too busy sharing their snack with the dog, or smearing yogurt on their face, or enjoying how the grass feels beneath their toes. And like, who wants to stop doing all these amazing fun things in life to stop and use the potty, especially when it's so convenient for the hippie to just go right there whenever and wherever. So like my parent coaching clients with hippie toddlers, I hear from a lot about how they're concerned that they can't make progress with their often very, sort of creative and loving little hippie. But the secret with hippies is wait a little longer, be a little more patient, and then they'll kick in. So that's the hippie. But now let's move on to the mule potty personality. And I love these little mule personalities, and I have a couple of my own. And our little mules are probably our little shy temperament types, and they're by nature they're a little nervous and resistant to trying anything new, and they want things to stay the same, how they are, and they've been peeing and pooping into a diaper for literally all of their lives, and so this is a huge change, and they tend to be worried about talking about underpants and this newfangled potty seat, and pressure with your mule will really backfire, so to speak. And the good news is, though, that your little mules, often grow up to be very persistent, very creative, very loyal, very wonderful little personalities. So it's not to worry about the mule, just to modify your approach to best support them. Next, let's move on to our tornado potty personality. And the tornado is just like what it sounds. And when you see them, the tornado little toddler personalities are super high energy. They need tons of playtime. They're zipping down the slide up and down 37,000 times. They're just not yet ready to focus on one activity for very long. They're pinging from one activity to another. They're swinging from the chandelier. So just try to get them to settle down and use the potty. No, thank you. So they need tons of extra patience and lots of hands-on, side-by-side guidance, and they eventually will master the potty, but it's just, again, modifying your approach. And then finally, we have our eager beaver. And our eager beaver is a naturally, quote, easy temperament who's been very predictable and regular all along, sleeping and eating and developing at a fairly standard, regular pace. They're likely to be checking this potty training thing off their list just as easily. They're that easy 50% part. And they don't seem to be disturbed, particularly by new smells, new experiences, new sounds, new textures. But what I do want to say about the eager beaver, just like you were saying about your one kiddo, and I did have one too, but before we congratulate ourselves on how easy it is to potty train this type of kiddo, remember, these temperamental traits are inborn, and they're not necessarily because we're such fabulous parents, although I'm sure we are. But, when your next kiddo isn't as easy to train, like you were mentioning, you won't take it so personally and worry so much. It's just their inborn temperament and style of this particular child. So these are the 5 pretty potty personalities that I go over in much more detail in my book, Let's Get This Potty Started, which also gives you lots of potty training strategies for each potty personality.
All right. So I know you probably don't want us to go into too much because I know you have this in your book, but can you give a few things for each temperament? So how someone finds I have the hippie. Can you give a couple of ideas for each temperament?
Yeah, the hippie is it's really kind of amazing how often this strategy works with the hippie, is that if you just are patient and wait till a little bit later in the potty training window to like 3 or 3.5, and just don't stress about it until they're slightly on the older side, which is 3 or 3.5, potty training tends to go a lot better, because just that little extra bit of maturity there, and maybe that little bit of extra exposure for them socially to their peers and other kids, they sort of start to lock in and be like, oh, wait, this is happening. Okay, let me try to figure this out, as opposed to the much younger toddler where they just couldn't care less. So that's the hippie. And then for our mule, what I recommend is just that you really do have to sort of, if it's the 2 steps forward and 3 steps back, you need to go side by side with them on the mule's timetable. Any kind of pushing or like, you've got to hurry this up because we've got to get this preschool spot and whatever. It's like they're going to lock in and lock down and just refuse. And that's how you end up with a lot of this really more complicated dynamics that can happen with quote unquote stubborn toddlers. It's just that they're holding on kind of for dear life to their way of life as they know it. And they're not interested in all these changes. And so the changes really do have to be presented in a way that's gentle and patient, and parents shouldn't forget that even with a mule toddler personality, there is always that inborn miraculous sort of desire and wish for the child to grow up and to become independent. So you always have that as your ally. Your child always also wants to get older, and so if you could just sort of back off with the pressure and let that natural desire for independence emerge, that's what you're going to align with. And then for the tornado is like, your little kid who's climbing the walls, and, that kiddo does really well with hands-on kind of like, make sure you make a lot of eye contact, hands-on, getting their attention, touching them and saying, hey, let's race to the potty. Who can get there first? Making things a game, making things fun, having toys that maybe are only allowed to be used while they're trying on the potty, things to make it exciting and fun works best with the tornado, and also a huge dose of patience. And your accountant, is really just going to sort of do fine on their own as long as you don't press. And so if they feel like they have ideas for, you want to get their ideas for the potty training plan, you want to empower them towards their own natural sense of independence and really encourage them. But don't fall into the trap with the accountant of rigidity. And they can sometimes get rigid too if they're pushing too far, too fast. So giving them a break, is important as well. And of course, your eager beaver is really going to be easy, but, again, it's a matter of not making it like they're quote unquote better because they were easier in this regard, but really looking at the overall development of the attachment relationship with your child and your own perception of you as a parent, and understanding that there's a lot more to it than just these temperament styles.
Oh, I love that. And I'm sure every parent out there right now is analyzing, do I have a mule? Do I have a tornado? Like, as soon as I saw the word tornado, I'm like, and that is my son.
Right.
But
yeah.
It's funny that I think we all try to identify our kids in this and get a sense. And I love that you really described it well. But one thing I hadn't realized until I was preparing for this conversation was that potty training is a developmental milestone. I hadn't really thought about that. I thought it's just something we just have to check off and do.
Yes.
So what does potty training reveal about a child's development that parents might not actually realize they're witnessing?
It's really, as weird as it sounds, potty training truly is the signature developmental achievement of toddlerhood. It's not just this gross thing to sort of cross off your parenting list. And here's why. Potty training requires all of your child's developmental domains to all work together to get this very actually complex job done. And this is what I mean by that. It requires motor skills, gross motor skills, fine motor skills, getting to the potty, wiping, getting undressed, getting dressed. Cognitive skills it requires, planning ahead, how do I get to the potty on time? Deciding I want to start using the potty instead of going in my diaper. It requires emotional skills. I want to be like my friends. I want to be like my older siblings or my parents. The ability to wait and to hold back just from going just right now, like they always have, to have that impulse control. All of these skills are super important emerging skills of the toddler becoming independent. Babies can't do any of these things, none of them. This is all the developmental magic in all the developmental domains of the toddler. It is an absolute symphony of development. And that's why I explain that as gross as potty training can be, and parents just feel like, let's just get this over with, I want them to step back. I invite them to step back and realize what a truly miraculous time this is and how incredibly and beautifully complex potty training is. And indeed, all the developmental magic of the toddler as they're striving to become more independent, as difficult as it can be for us as parents during this time. If we can just sit back and realize that, we can enjoy this stage and maximize this chance we have to build a wonderful, strong, positive attachment relationship with our kiddo instead of just trying to cross this gross thing off our parenting list. It's so much more than that.
I had not realized that. So I'm really glad that you helped explain that. Okay, we're going to take a super quick break. When we come back, let's start to discuss a little bit what falls within normal and then when maybe they need a sign to get some help. So let's take a break. We'll be right back. Okay, we are back. So we have the 5 different personalities, which are probably going to also inform us how each kid is going to approach this. But then I think there's also, or maybe you can better answer this, what is normal? Because there's such different ways of approaching it. And I put normal in kind of quotes because, what is normal? And then where's a sign that things really are going off the rails and they need help? How can parents tell the difference?
Yeah. Well, one thing that I always mention is I want parents to know the secret enemy of potty training that can really gallop quickly in the direction of needing medical developmental intervention, and that is the issue of constipation. Constipation is the secret enemy of potty training. It hurts so badly, and then they can start poop withholding, and you get a really bad cycle going where they're withholding and because it hurts, and the more they withhold, the more they hold back, the more they are constipated. And lots of parents in my coaching practice come for help with some kind of poop withholding cycle because it can get really complicated. And I also say that if there's no significant progress in potty training by age 4, and I say significant progress, not that they're necessarily perfectly potty trained, but significant progress meaning that a child is showing some interest, some readiness in potty training, some attempts, some curiosity about it by age 4, for sure to get a medical and developmental evaluation going, and to make sure it's with a practitioner who's expert and experienced in dealing with toddlers. Because as you said, a lot of pediatricians, God bless them, they're so busy keeping our children basically alive. They've got 30 to 50 patients they're seeing a day, and potty training is like, it just sort of can't be on their radar unless it's really gotten super, super bad. And then they just got the super medical intervention. If it's gotten escalated to that point, they've got the medical interventions and you've gotten to a whole different level. But there's a lot you can do to prevent it from getting that to that point to begin with.
So, okay, there's constipation, there's withholding, but this is kind of a broad question. How long might it take? Like, as I mentioned, I did this crash course, 3-day situation. For the most part, my son was pretty potty trained after that. And my daughter, it took a month. What's the range that you typically see?
Oh, a month is considered fast in my book. Seriously.
I guess because the first one was 3 days.
Yeah,
Okay.
totally. There's a whole range there. So depending on the personality type. So, you may half of all toddlers, I would say, are within the days to weeks sort of ballpark. And of course, not considering nighttime potty training, because that's a whole different, we can have that conversation as well. But for daytime potty training, for a lot of your, certainly your hippie types, your mule types, your tornado types, you may be looking at many, many months into even a year before you're really getting refined and to the point where you're feeling confident that you're going to go out and you don't need to bring the diapers anymore.
I mean, we had, again, this was in the streets of New York City. We had our stroller and we had that, like a little travel potty. And
I love it.
I'm sure suburban people are like, what are you talking about? So
it's in the trunk of our car.
Yeah. Okay. So we had like a little travel potty where it was like it just unfolded. We put a bag there. And like, I seriously remember being on between West End Ave, for those in New York, you'll know this, West End Ave and Broadway, up in like 99th Street. And my son in the stroller, like, I have to use the potty. And we're like, yes. And we're literally on the sidewalk, unfolded the potty. He used it. We found a garbage. Like, that sounds like craziness. But what do a lot of people? You said you had one in the trunk of the car. Like, what is that typical potty training? We felt like we were slightly crazy people.
Yeah, I feel like you're asking me to make a judgment about and the truth is so much of it depends on kind of the way your family is and the way your family handles things, because the way you handle potty training is not just the way you handle potty training. It's the way you handle parenting, and it's the culture of your family. It's the way that you relate as a family. And so, babies and toddlers, thankfully, are so resilient and so flexible that they really blend into our family approach. And so I guess the message to parents is really that if you're not the type to pack super comprehensively and bring along the portable travel potty or whatever, that's fine too. It's not like you have to do that. It's that I was more like you, Deb, in terms of wanting to be super prepared and bring everything along. But that matches my personality and your personality. and you want to feel comfortable within your sort of zone of what makes sense to you. And so I want to empower parents to feel like they can go about this in the way that makes the most sense for them. They don't have to feel like if they don't do it this way, they're going to blow it and something terrible is going to happen to their child or for their family, or they're like bad parents or they get a bad grade. Like, that's not how it is. There's so much flexibility here as long as you work within the parameters of general sort of health and developmental wellness. That you can customize, and also there's this message that floats around a lot that, like, if you start with the potty training and the diapers, you can never go back. You have to be consistent. There's this message always floating around of consistency. Like, you're going to confuse the child if you're not consistent. Once you do a ceremony and you give all the diapers away to some other needy child who needs them and you're done. Hooray, let's have a party. Well, that really concerns me, because child development does not proceed in a straight line.
Yeah, it's definitely not linear. There's ups and downs.
And so then you're setting up for failure. So it's like, oh, wait a second, actually we're having a setback, or they got a stomach bug, or something happened, or they just didn't feel like it that day. And you're like, oh, well, now we have to go buy diapers again. Oh my, and people are stressed, and the consistency thing has been oversold. So if you send a message to your child, we're going to try without diapers today. Oh, well, guess what? It didn't work. We needed them. That's okay. That's what they're for. We're going to go back to diapers tomorrow and we'll see how it goes. That is fine. That is not going to ruin your child or set you back or do anything sort of negative. There's not going to be a negative impact. In fact, it's going to model for your child flexibility. And when things are not linear, we're flexible and we're resilient and we modify as needed.
Okay, I have a question about timing, and it seems like it's quite broad. And you also brought into cultural, like certain cultures do earlier. Is there a time, and I guess I'm thinking about when I was pregnant with my daughter, my pediatrician did mention, like, you probably either want to potty train before or after, not when she's first born. The kids are about like 2.5 years apart. Do you find that having significant changes in the house would not be a good time to introduce such a huge transition for the child? Or does it not really matter and it's more about the child's development?
Well, I mean, I get it that it's aspirational to not have all of the big changes happening all at the same time, but isn't that the way it often is when we're having toddlers and babies in the house? It's like, oh, don't do a lot of changes all at once. Well, guess what? A lot of changes tend to happen at that time, whether it's going to preschool or starting a new daycare or like transitioning somebody out of a crib or moving houses or what, like a new baby, it all does tend to happen. So to the degree that you can, if you're interested in introducing the potty to your toddler before a new baby is born and they seem receptive and interested, and there are a lot of, and I have readiness, a readiness checklist and information that I have through BabyShrink, you're looking at readiness. If they seem ready and they seem interested, well, then you can feel free to explore that with them and let them try it out. But don't have this idea in mind that they have to be potty trained before the baby is born because I don't want to be changing a toddler's diapers and a baby's diaper. I mean, I get it that you don't want to be changing both diapers at the same time, but it really can be a setup because once the baby is born, the toddler's going to say, hey, what about me? I'm a baby too. And often you see the regression. That's just typical and expected and not a bad thing. That's just part of it. So the timing on that is kind of aspirational and depends on the child that you have. Some of them are more cooperative than others, and you just sort of try and see what happens.
Can I piggyback on something you just said about on your website? You do have some readiness signs. What are a few of those? So if parents, I mean, obviously I'll go to your website to see more, but can you give a few in case a parent's starting to be like, oh, I didn't even know there were readiness signs?
Yes, absolutely. When they are waking up dry from a nap, that's one sign. When they are, sometimes toddlers, you will see them sort of hiding to poop. They'll go and they'll crouch behind a piece of furniture or hide in order to poop. That shows that they're aware that they're pooping and that they want maybe a little bit of privacy or they're thinking about what's going on. Interest in potties going on just in general, like with pets or with you or, like parents or siblings, like what's going on in the bathroom anyway? What's this wiping thing? Can I flush? Like they're interested in what's going on in there. And to the extent that your family is comfortable with it, I really encourage family members to allow the toddler in with them, show them what goes on in the bathroom, how the toilet works, how the wiping works, the hand washing, all of that stuff. And a lot of times, like with my younger children, I feel like the older kids were much more important, made a much more important impact on the younger kids' potty training experience than even even we did as parents. So it's very, toddlers love to look at, their siblings, older kids, for that kind of role modeling.
That makes a lot of sense. All right, I want to circle back to something you mentioned about nighttime potty training.
Yeah.
Because that is something that, right, we did like that 3-day thing, but it wasn't like we're done with diapers. It was the daytime. So it definitely was a longer nighttime situation. So what's one of the biggest myths you address about nighttime potty training? Can you explain why staying dry overnight isn't something that we can train in a few days?
Right. So, I mean, that's something that parents are really surprised often to realize is that you literally cannot train someone to do something in their sleep, right? Like just thinking of that, like, oh yeah, we're trying to train them in their sleep. How do you do something like that? Especially a young child. And, so that's why nighttime potty training isn't really a thing. It's a totally different process than daytime potty training. We're waiting for Mother Nature here. And what parents don't realize is that there's actually a genetic switch in the hormone system in the brain that produces a hormone that minimizes urine production at night. That is when nighttime potty training can happen and not before. And that's when the production of pee goes down at night. But that switch to decrease the amount of nighttime pee doesn't turn on until toddlerhood or several years later. And the normal range of when this switch is turned on, again, by Mother Nature, is like from a year or 18 months all the way up to age 7 or even older. So that's why children who aren't yet dry at night still produce so much pee. They just soak themselves at night, and why nighttime wetting is considered largely biological and genetic. So it's really a matter of patience and coping and not freaking out about it. And of course, I want to say how important it is to work closely with your pediatrician, your healthcare providers who specialize in toddler development around any of these possible medical concerns, so you know that there's like nothing else going on to be concerned about, like a UTI or something like that.
So you said 7 or older. Is there a point? First of all, that I did not have any idea it was that old. And so thank you for sharing, because it might help some parents feel a little bit more at ease. But is there an age where it becomes something you talk to your care provider about? It's like, no longer I'm in the range from 18 months to 7. They're like, I don't know, 9, 10, 11, like, and that's still happening? Or is it just patience? When is it a medical situation?
You know, it's really a medical situation to be checking in with your pediatrician about, in just to touch bases anytime after about 4. Okay. Not that there's a diagnosis or a medical problem, but just so that, because the interesting thing about nighttime wetting is it connects again into constipation. That for some children, the nighttime wetting is not caused by this biological switch not going on yet, but actually because they're so backed up with constipation that it's blocking the signals from their bladder to their brain, and then they're wetting at night because they're constipated. I mean, that's a weird connection that really was shocking to me, and that most parents don't realize that that's, again, why that constipation is really the secret enemy of potty training, not only for daytime training, but also for nighttime. Because if you're all packed up with poop in there and you've got these nerve signals that aren't totally strong yet because the child is so young, like saying, I have a full bladder down here, I need to go. And then you've got all this poop and, full colon pressing on all these delicate new nerves, the transmitting the information to the brain, it's going to block that. And so
that makes so much sense.
Right? Yeah.
They're having also so much probably kind of heaviness and sensation from the backed up poop. They might not even know that's the difference between full bladder and just what's all that sensation down there.
Exactly. It blocks. And when it's confusing like that, our brain's normal reaction is to kind of shut it down.
So one thing I hadn't considered, this is kind of fascinating to me.
Yeah, right?
My brain is like spinning. So after my kids were potty trained, I didn't check in a ton about, I noticed how much they use the bathroom because, they were still toddlers and with me. But as they get older, so you're saying like 4, 5, 6, 7, especially once they're at school, like you're not checking how often they're pooping necessarily. So you may not know they're constipated, and that may not be something they share because they might not even know that's outside of the norm. That's just their body, and that's what they might think is normal. So should parents be checking in more about like, how often are you pooping? I don't know.
Well, and not even how often, but how much. And this totally goes against the sort of standard, American cultural tendency. We just want to be done with it. We don't want to look at it. We don't want to think about it. We don't want to talk about it. That's just kind of pervasive in the culture. But guess what? We really should be, because starting from that very early age, what I tell parents is they should be pooping about the amount of a small banana each day. And again, going back to the constipation, a lot of times what happens during potty training is that it's like they're sitting on the potty, oh, I pooped. And everybody's like, hooray, you pooped, hooray. And there's poop in there. And so then there's like a big celebration and they moved on. And it's like they pooped. But then if you think about it, maybe the amount, if you look at it, it's just a little bit. But it's like, oh, they pooped. I'll check that off the list. We'll move on. And then the next day, same thing. They pooped. Hooray, that's great. But then they only pooped a little bit. But they're supposed to be getting out about the size of a small banana. So what's happening to the rest of that poop? It's staying inside their body. And then day after day, it builds up and builds up and builds up. And so often, pediatricians will have a complaint of a young child with a really bad stomach ache or some kind of constipation-related concerns. They'll do an X-ray, and the entire colon is so packed full of poop. And it's because of this slow and steady buildup that happens day after day after day, even with a child who is quote, pooping every day.
That is so interesting. It's funny you say also it's cultural, because right, we don't talk about it. I was thinking about years ago when I went to India and I was at an Ayurvedic center. Poop was quite a conversation. The consistency, the color, how much. But yeah, normally outside of that experience or having like a young baby where you're talking about the poop, it is not something we think about. That's kind of fascinating.
We would really be better off if we looked at it and talked about it and thought about it quite a bit more, because there are so many little ones out there who grow up to be big ones with these constipation issues and these digestive issues. And we really could learn something from that Ayurvedic method for sure.
So if parents could take one mindset shift away from this conversation about potty training, what would you most want them to remember?
I just really hope they can be absolutely blown away by the beautiful miracle and symphony, really, of child development that your child shows every single day. Just look at how much they have developed in the first 1 to 2 years of life, going from this completely helpless little lump to talking, running, learning, having opinions, all these skills, becoming independent. It's truly one of life's most wonderful, fantastic experiences. And once parents realize that and kind of back up and take sort of a view of the whole picture, and remember this phase is truly so short, and that we are privileged to have this ringside seat to this miracle, despite all the difficulties. And I know how hard it is. I hope you can enjoy the experience and what I believe is one of life's greatest gifts. And I haven't even talked about how much better this approach for your child's long-term psychological adjustment and development, and for your attachment relationship with your child, which is starting to become, there's more awareness that parents have now about the importance of the attachment relationship with your child for now and for a lifetime. So minimizing the pressure of potty training and parenting in general, and walking side by side with your child as they navigate these challenges and these new skills, instead of always pushing and stressing, sort of that is the way. That's what I want them. That's what I want everyone to realize.
Oh, I love that. Okay, we're going to take our final break. And when we come back, what is one final tip or piece of advice you'd like to offer to new and expectant parents? And you're a mom of 4, so this can come from anything. It can come from you being a mom. It can come from, your background working with kids, whatever you want. So we're going to take a super quick break. We'll be right back.
We all have that dream trip we've been wishing we could go on, but too often life, or usually price, gets in the way. That's why Priceline is here to help you turn your dream trip into reality. With up to 60% off hotels and up to 50% off flights, you can book everything you need for your next adventure. Don't just dream about that next trip. Book it with Priceline. Download the Priceline app or visit Priceline.com and book your next trip today.
Go to your happy price, Priceline.
Okay, we are back. So what is one final tip or piece of advice you'd like to offer new and expectant parents?
Well, I just want to jump right in with this particular thing about the preschool stresses that I know so many parents have at this stage, because they've got this pressure to get a preschool spot. It's not easy to get a decent preschool or daycare spot. And then so many of these schools or programs have these 100% potty trained requirements. Which I think is such I'm just on a mission about this. It's such a disservice to children and families. It puts so much pressure on them. And, I just want parents to think about this. And I don't mean to make it more complicated for them, but any preschool that insists that all 2 or 3-year-olds be 100% potty trained, to me it's questionable in terms of, do they really understand toddler development, period. So I really recommend for parents to try to find a preschool or a daycare setting that truly supports child development, because I know there's so many of your listeners with toddlers and babies out there stressing about finding a spot and like what's a good sort of place. Finding a program that will support your toddler through the potty learning process and not just have this absolute rule about potty training. Because for half of all toddlers, it's a more lengthy and complex process that requires support and not just sort of you're in or you're out, kid.
Oh, I really like that. I've never heard anyone say that. And that's really, really good advice. Where can people find your work?
They can look me up at BabyShrink.com. And I've been writing parenting blogs and on YouTube and on Instagram doing videos for years and years. And I have a video version that parents can sign up for at BabyShrink.com if they like. And I'm available for parent consults through BabyShrink.com as well. And as you can tell, I can talk about this stuff forever. I love it. And I just think it's so important. And I really am so impressed, Deb, with your platform and the information that you provide, to your listeners as well. It's so important. It's such a wonderful phase of life for families. And I'm just thrilled to have the opportunity to share that with you and your listeners today.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this conversation. When I thought potty training important, but you really kind of made it fun to explore and also to reminisce a little bit about that time. So thank you so much for your knowledge.
And I can promise that there's a lot of potty jokes in my book. Let's get this potty started. I thought if I'm going to sit down and write a potty training book, it better be funny. So I am proud to say that it's a fun read.
Thank you. All right, take care.
You too.
This has been an episode of Yoga Birth Babies, produced by Prenatal Yoga Center. You can catch us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Periscope. I'm Deb Flaschenberg. Thanks for listening.
You can't reason with the sun. Trust us, we've tried. This summer, it's time to put that angry ball of fire on mute. Columbia's Omni-Shade technology is engineered to protect you from the sun's harsh rays that can burn and damage your skin. The sun is relentless, but so is our gear. Level up your summer at Columbia.com to spend more time outside and less time slathering on aloe lotion. You're welcome. Columbia, engineered for whatever.